Hi, this is Andrea from the Destiny Farm. I'd like to speak to you about a dream that I had a few nights ago. It was a very interesting dream. In this dream, I was busy masturbating, and in the experience of myself during masturbation, I was in quite a frenzy to experience an orgasm and to experience more of a sexual experience. And in this frenzy, I remember that I was going through points of desiring to be fulfilled, desiring for this ultimate sexual fulfillment. And during the dream, or towards the middle of the dream, basically, there was a bird. And I remember I was lying down, and this bird came up to me and started pecking at my vagina. And I remember in the dream at first being slightly perturbed. There is a bird pecking at my vagina. This is strange. But I was so caught up in the sexual frenzy that as the bird was pecking, I was getting sexual gratification from what the bird was doing. As if I was so desperate in that moment to have some kind of sexual experience that what would normally be strange and not acceptable, obviously, in the waking life, was acceptable in the dream. It was kind of like a secret moment that I went from being, oh, this isn't right, this is strange, to being, oh, what the fuck, I'm getting a sexual experience out of this. I'll just carry on with the experience. And now looking at the dream and the perspectives that have been shared with me with regards to the dream, is the point of the symbolic representation of the bird pecking at my genitals is basically symbolically the anger and resentment that I experienced towards my vagina for my experiences in the past where I have gone into relationships and agreements simply because of wanting to alleviate some sexual point. So to bring that into more perspective, the point that I'm experiencing and have been experiencing is the point of having agreements and relationships not work out because basically the decision and the starting point of going into a relationship with somebody has been, majority of the times, has been the point of, okay, I think we can be physically compatible, sexually compatible, I'm attracted to this person, it can work. Letting everything else and every other principle that you stand for slide because you see that this one point will really work, and then you kind of go, well, I'm able to see that the other points are not in place, but I'm gonna go for the physical point. And then what inevitably happens is that the physical point works, but that the rest of the agreement does not work, and all the other points fall, and within that, the experience of yourself changes, things become complicated, and then the agreement ends just for me to realize that all the other points were not in place, and that I allowed the agreement to happen in the first place because of a desire to alleviate one physical point, instead of making sure that the person that you're walking with is actually willing to walk, and that all your points are in place, that you've self-honestly looked at what am I willing to do and be, and direct within myself to be who I want to be within the agreement, and according to that decide who I'm going to walk with, when I'm going to walk, how I'm going to walk, and instead everything else kind of falls apart because when you decided to go into the agreement, you didn't take all the points into consideration, and then in the end I end up resenting myself for for going into the agreement just based on physicality. So what that means is in the end I would then perceive my genitalia, my vagina, my sexuality as being the controlling dominant point, controlling me and directing me and deciding for me when I go into agreement, how I go into agreement, and with her. And because this has happened a few times, and what the dream is indicating to me on a symbolic resonant level is that I am now, through the dream, showing myself how I've resonantly created a point with regards to sexuality where I'm experiencing resentment towards my vagina. I'm experiencing that my sexuality is this beast, this thing which is quite overwhelming at times and wants to be let out of its cage, and that I make decisions to appease the vagina. And that it's now, very interestingly, as the dream started out, it was again one of me attempting to get sexual gratification, and then it turning to the point where the bird was involved. The bird was pecking at me, and I was still getting sexual gratification on that point. However, the symbolic point behind it was that I will, even though I'm experiencing, there's the resonant point of resentment, the dream was where I was like nailing my vagina, like pecking at it, nailing at it, but still getting sexual gratification, meaning seeing my vagina and my sexuality as a dominating force within my life, however accepting it and saying, well, I've got to work with what is here, and kind of giving into the point and going, oh well, what can I do about it? Now, the self-forgiveness points with regards to this is me realizing that for a long time I've been afraid of myself with regards to my sexuality. I have been afraid to express who I am as the rest of me with somebody, and I've always settled for going into relationships and agreements where the focal point was sex, where I knew from the word go that this person wanted to be in a relationship with me, specifically for the sex point, the physicality point, and that the other points are not in place. And instead of following the point of being aware that the other points are not in place, that the starting point of this agreement is not in self-honesty, I would let the point slide, and I would go, oh well, at least I'm getting the physical point. But then in the end up presenting myself as my sexuality for, oh, I did it again. So the self-forgiveness that I will be doing on this point will be from the perspective of forgiving me for, first of all, perceiving myself as a sexual being. You know, I trained myself from, let's say, when I left school, to become sexually charged, to become focused and obsessed in sexual situations. And now the resonant play out of that point is that I'm facing the consequences, which is, now that I'm not in an agreement, I'm not in a sexual relationship, I'm having these dreams. Because now there's the point of feeling alone and feeling that the male's left, because the starting point of our agreement was not self-honest, and now I am to blame because I went through all of that instead of not going into the relationship in the first place, being aware of, I know what's going to happen if I go into this relationship, and instead now going, well, I went through all of that and it was just because of sexuality. So the forgiveness point will come from the perspective of, it is coming from the perspective of, I forgive myself, accepting, allowing myself to design myself as a sexual, promiscuous being. I forgive myself, accepting, allowing myself to believe that who I am is merely a sexual body, a vagina, somebody to have sex with. So then the forgiveness will go on to, for example, I forgive myself, accepting, allowing myself to believe that all I am is somebody to have sex with. I forgive myself, accepting, allowing myself to dismiss all other aspects of myself and only give myself to another as somebody to have sex with. Because that point has been the point that I designed myself within from the past, and now I'm facing the consequences of still walking into relationships where the focal point is sex, physicality. And then the relationship doesn't work because that's not what I want. And then I inevitably get to the point where it's like, I did it again.